acsportstips.com. We have our Week 3 game analysis of a very intriguing matchup in Louisville, Kentucky, with Larry Fedora and the North Carolina Tar Heels traveling on the road to face the Louisville Cardinals and head coach Charlie Strong. This is a very evenly matched contest, a very intriguing contest, and we're going to break it down for you on both sides of the ball for each team, and we'll have our prediction of this game a little bit later in the week. Let's start with North Carolina and head coach Larry Fedora. As you know, Fedora left Southern Miss last year. He comes to North Carolina this year with high expectations, trying to turn that marred program around from what Butch Davis and the recruiting scandal down in Chapel Hill has done to that team. So we look at the Tar Heels right now. Their strength is their quarterback and Bryn Renner. He's a very good quarterback, and he has a massive offensive line in front of him. His left and right tackles are both 6'7", 315 plus. Brennan Williams and James Hurst are huge all ACC tackles, and if you want to throw in right guard Travis Bond, who is 6'7", 315 as well, the offensive line of North Carolina is its strength. It averages 312 pounds per man. That's a huge offensive line. Head coach Larry Fedora likes to run first, and he's without the first 2 games at least without his star running back Giovanni Bernard, who's been injured in the first game of the year against Elon. They've been going with the backup A.J. Blue, and he's filled in admirably, but they would love to have Giovanni Bernard, the Tar Heels would, in this contest. He's listed as questionable. Coach Fedora doesn't give a lot out in terms of the injury report. All we could say is that he was suited up at Wake Forest in the loss on the road to the Demon Deacons, but he did not play. Whether he plays this week is the major question. They can sure use him against a stout Louisville Cardinal defense. If defensively for the Tar Heels, their strength is run defense. They held Wake Forest last week to only 1.9 yards rushing last week, and that's a huge effort against a very good running team in Wake Forest. So keep that in mind going into this Louisville contest. If they are weak, North Carolina, it's in the secondary where they have a sophomore and a redshirt freshman at both the cornerback and in safety positions. So that's going to pose some problems going into this matchup. In last year's game, North Carolina at home pulled out a 14-7 victory. It was a tight matchup. They dominated the whole game and won 14-0. We're winning 14-0, and Louisville added a touchdown late in that game to pull within 7, 14-7. That was also Louisville Cardinals quarterback Teddy Bridgewater's first start. From that moment in that game last year, he progressed week to week. So just keep that in mind as well. It's going to be the strength of the offensive line of North Carolina against that quick and speedy defensive front of Louisville and head coach Charlie Strong. Charlie Strong was the defensive coordinator at Florida from 03 to 09. And if it's one thing he learned in playing in the SEC, he realizes that you need a strong offensive line, and the strength of Louisville as well. Their offensive line is led by senior Max Benavides, the senior center. They average 306 pounds per person as well. So it's the strength of the offensive line of North Carolina and the strength of the offensive line of Louisville going up against these defensive fronts. So that's the matchup right there, and we have to see how it plays out. And like we said, we'll have a prediction later in the week. If you're Louisville, you want to just continue to get Teddy Bridgewater more involved in the passing game. He threw for a career high last week of 344 yards in the win against Missouri State. He's progressed. He played as a true freshman, and we called for Louisville to be a top 10 team at the end of the season. We still feel that way. The hiccup in the schedule is this game right here. If Louisville can get past North Carolina, they can run the table, and we wouldn't be shocked if they win 10 games this year. But this is the major test in the schedule at this point, and we're going to break it down for you. Offensively, like we said, for Louisville, it's the strength of that offensive line, and coming off that great performance last week from Teddy Bridgewater in the passing game, it's going to be, can Bridgewater exploit the young secondary of the Tar Heels? The running game has been led by Jeremy Wright, filling in for Dominique Brown, who's injured. Will he play in this game? We have to see. He's listed as questionable as well. He hurt his knee, so both teams without their star running backs coming into this matchup, who really haven't played in the first two games. We'll have to see if they play in this matchup. Something tells me that if they're good, if they're both able to walk, they'll play in this game. Giovanni Bernard and Dominique Brown will both see action, we believe, in this ball game. We'll have to wait and see how the injury report pans out later in the week. Defensively, for the Cardinals, their strength is their starters. They returned 9 starters back from a team that won last year, if you remember, on the road at West Virginia. They shut down Geno Smith for most of that game. They won at West Virginia, and they won late in the year at South Florida. They shut down B.J. Daniels, too. They have a strength in their secondary, and that's going to be the matchup right now. Can Bryn Renner get the ball down the field against that secondary of Louisville? We'll have to see. Head coach Charlie Strong has great game plans, defensive game plans for his team. That's his strength, and he puts his team in a position defensively to win week in and week out, and we have to see how that matches up later in the week. We'll have a prediction a little bit later on our website, and a video podcast prediction later in the week as well. So that's what we're keeping an eye out on. Also, North Carolina going on back-to-back road trips. They traveled last week to Wake Forest. Yes, it's in the state of Carolina. We realize that, but it is still back-to-back road contests for the Tar Heels, whereas Louisville now, this is their 3rd straight home game. So they're sitting back, they're relaxed, they don't have travel plans, they're preparing for this North Carolina game. That's going to be an advantage for Louisville going into this matchup, and we have to see how that plays out later in the week. So stay with us. We're going to break down a few other games, but we're keeping an eye on this intriguing matchup at Louisville this weekend. So stay with us at www.acsportstips.com.